Welcome to the Hammer Factor. On this episode, we have none other than Aaron Saft, who is a USA track and field trail marathon national champion, second place finisher at the grueling Grindstone 100 Ultra Marathon, and owner of Foot RX here in Asheville, North Carolina. Thanks for joining us here on the Hammer Factor, and welcome to the hot seat, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
Let's start off. Give our listeners something that most people probably don't know about you.
Let's see. At one time was a professional disc golfer. Yes.
What happened?
Yeah. So when I got injured one year in college when I was racing, I broke my right elbow, and I couldn't run, and so my friends took me out disc golfing. I learned to play lefty, and then it just kind of stuck with me. And when my wife went to medical school, I got heavily into it and moved up through the ranks until eventually I was playing pro. I developed my right arm and played pro for a while, but of course I always ran. But disc golf. I've got what do I have? About 12 baskets at my house, and I think I have 24 holes. So it was a deal that my wife and I made. If she went to medical school, I would have a frisbee golf course when we got a house.
I like that. So what does that mean to be pro? Does that mean that you're like paid by a team, or you have sponsors, or how do you become a pro?
It's the level you play at. They have novice, amateur, advanced. Advanced is the last amateur status you can have before you turn pro. So it's just categories and in essence what you win. So amateurs, they're not allowed to accept cash, obviously in any sport. So they paid you out in merchandise. So you got discs and bags and skids and stuff. And then when you go pro, you play for cash,
Nice.
which I can't say I won much of. So I could say I played pro, but I didn't really make much money at it. So I went and made sure that I continued running.
Well, let's start early on. Before you went to college, which you were all ACC, ran on the track team there at North Carolina State. Before owning a running store, before having a family, what was Aaron like as a kid? Where'd you grow up, and what were you into as a youth?
I grew up in Middletown, New York. That was the original home of Frank Shorter, the 1972 Olympic gold medalist. I was, I would say, into just anything that got me outside. I loved playing with my friends. We played wiffle ball. We were into rollerblading and skateboarding. I was the typical. I grew up in kind of a city environment, so Mom used to call us in when it got dark, and we'd go inside and have dinner. But anytime I could, I was outside with my friends, doing something hacky sacking or whatever it may be. I just liked hanging out. I got into running in 8th grade through cross country. So I did cross country starting in 8th grade, which was 1990 for me. So this will be 29 years of running this year for me. And I was pretty reserved. My friends liked to party and stuff like that. I didn't. I was pretty quiet, and I liked to just chill. And we usually raced on Saturdays, so Friday nights were pretty quiet for me. And Saturday nights, I'd hang out with my girlfriend or something. But like I said, I wasn't much of a partier or anything like that.
Yeah. So you were just always into playing outside.
Yeah, I always loved the outside. My dad. A lot of climbers know where I grew up with my dad. It was Cragsmore. They call them the Crags up in by New Paltz. So I grew up in that area. So we had some tremendous trails up in the ridges there. So that's the area I grew up in. That was my playground. That's where my passion for trails grew from. We weren't far from Bear Mountain. A lot of people know Bear Mountain from the North Face series. They run up there.
Mm-hmm.
So we ran there all the time. AT goes right through there. So, I kind of grew up in that area of New York.
Well, at some point you went down the path. You said you got into running in 8th grade, and it kind of took over. Were you on that journey alone? Did you have a mentor during that time, or how did your running kind of evolve from that eighth grade period?
Sure. I'd say it really. I found a mentor in ninth grade through my cross country coach. His name was Martin Harnick. He was a fantastic role model, inspiration, coach. Really someone I looked up to and enjoyed, my time with. I learned a lot from. Really shared his passion for running, and not just, through seeing success, but just, through the joy of the sport, and really where it could take you and what you could do with it. The experiences you can gain, and just the joy that it brings, the happiness that you feel just for being free and able to move on your own 2 feet for whatever the distance may take you. So he was my cross country coach only. In indoor and outdoor track, I was pretty much self coached. I coached the distance guys through high school, but he was very inspirational and kind of those formative years of my running. College, my coach was Raleigh Geiger at NC State, which you mentioned, who was very experienced coach and has coached many All-Americans and had the most success at NC State through his ACC championships. Our team was third at NCAAs my final year. My wife's team was second at NCAAs her final year. So he's been a very successful coach. So that's who gave me my guidance through my collegiate years. And then post-collegiately, I've had many different coaches and really enjoyed learning from a variety of coaches through, I've done everything from road running to cross country. I've obviously done a lot of trail running and moved into ultra running. Never done a obstacle course race, but that's that's something I hope to do at some point to learn that facet of our sport. I really enjoy every aspect of running, from track to ultra marathoning. So, I mean, I've trained for the mile on up to the 100 mile. So it's been a long and varied career, but really enjoyed every part of it.
So a big trend with a lot of the athletes and people that we've interviewed on this show is that they had a mentor and someone who kind of steered them in a certain direction and, like you say, inspired them. From your experience, how important is a mentor? What does a mentor really mean?
I would agree with that. As I talked about, I always called him Mr. Harnick. He tells me to call him Marty now, but it just doesn't feel right. So I'll say Coach Harnick. He's somebody that I've always been able to communicate with throughout my life. It didn't stop in high school. I always he was my confidant in college. When I wanted to talk to somebody about running and the experiences I went through. Just having that shoulder, that ear to listen and bounce ideas off of, and hear your ideas and your perspective, and to hear their response and their ideas. I think it's vital to any person in any aspect of life, is that to have that mentor. It's just one more brain, one more ear to give you perspective, whereas you may be looking at it through one lens, but they may show you another side of it, and that may change your view, which has happened many times in my life. I have to remember that my perspective may not always be the right one.
Yeah, I like that. You get a different view, and they can open up your vision to what's really possible.
Right.
Through this period of prep in high school and then on to college, your team won a national championship. So I believe that
third
in the nation. And at some point you transitioned into the longer distances, the ultra marathon status, the 50 miler, the 100 miler. Tell me about that trend. What drew you to that? What motivated you to want to run for 20 hours?
So It took a long time for me. It's interesting to watch trends these days as we see these younger athletes that step out of college and potentially they're still in college and even younger and doing ultra marathons. I didn't do ultra marathons until I was in my late 30s. In my post collegiate day, ultra marathons weren't what they are today. The sport's really changed, and to see what's going on now in the sport, it's exciting. We have such young and fast runners in our sport, whereas back in the day, I didn't think about doing an ultra. I crewed and paced and helped others, but it wasn't something that I had really envisioned myself getting into. When I first got out of college, it was the marathon. That was the big thing, running the marathon and seeing if I could, get an Olympic qualifier, which, I took a few stabs at, even in track. I tried in the steeplechase, and then in the marathon. Didn't have any success in qualifying, and kind of looked for that next. What's next? What can I do next that makes me intrigued and wonder if I have the ability to do, and that's where ultra marathoning came in. I had run what I thought I could run in the marathon. Not that I don't want to run other marathons, but it came to the point where I was like, okay, I want to continue my career in running, and so what can I do to keep me moving, keep me interested, keep those goals coming. And that's where I stepped into a 50K. And I believe that was 2008. I ran my first 50K. That was it was it was interesting stepping past that marathon distance and being like, wow, that was furthest I've ever gone, and every step thereafter was even further. And so, getting to 31 miles and finishing, I was like, okay, that's the next step. That's pretty cool. And then it took me a few more years before I even moved up to the 50 mile. It was it was the Beast series that really got me into the longer distances. The Beast series, for those that don't know, is 6 races in Virginia, in the kind of Lynchburg, Roanoke, that corridor of Virginia. There's 350Ks in the spring, and then the fall is the Grindstone 100, followed by the Mount Masochist 50 mile and the Hellgate 100K, which goes October, November, December. It's a really tough finish to a year. I threw in a handful of ultras besides that year, so it was a really big year for me. And it was really.
What year was that?
2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah, so that was a big year. I did quite a few 50 miles. Did 125K to just kind of know what going beyond 50 miles would feel like, because I had not gone beyond that to that point, and I knew Grindstone was coming, so I was a little intimidated by 100-mile. Once again, my background, I was a miler and steeplechaser in college, so 100 miles was a significant jump for me. So doing the 125K, that was the Canadian Death Race up in Alberta, Canada. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Really enjoyed that race, and I found I could go all day and not die, thankfully. So yeah, that was my 100-mile experience, my first one. I've had 4 opportunities since then, 3 of which I finished. The only one I hadn't finished was Pinhoti, where I hurt my knee, and that was in 2017. But yeah, it's been a big learning curve. I've learned tremendous amount about how to fuel the body, pacing, what it means to have a crew, what it means to have a pacer. All of these things are, they're vital to finishing a 100-mile. And now my next big adventure will be Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, which is a 100-mile or 104-mile circumnavigation of Mont Blanc in the French Alps. where we'll run through Switzerland, Italy, and back into France. That's this coming summer. So really excited about the opportunity. It's a totally different style. We're not allowed to have pacers at this race since the race is so large. It's 2,500 runners, much larger than any other ultra we have here in the United States. So it should be interesting. My family's coming, so we're all really excited for this new adventure.
Well, I want to dig into that a little more here in a second. But sure. What advice you were mentioning there a second ago for our listeners? What are some key advice, some key points that you can offer to someone who does want to go past that marathon distance, that does want to get into some longer races? If you had to give just a couple little, obviously there's so much that goes into it. There's so many hours. There's a lot of things. But if you had to pick one or two things, what do you think the most important things someone can do to get ready for that distance?
So I don't want everybody to think that there's a huge jump in mileage that's needed for taking on a 50K or even a 50 mile. You can train for those just like you do a marathon. Perhaps your long run may be a little bit longer, but it's more the consistency and staying consistent, as is everything in our sport. If you have the consistency, then you'll be able to reach your goal. You just have to put in the time, like you said, and be willing to be out there, 4 or 5 days a week, to make that goal a reality. It's also learning, fueling. Again, we're going to be on our feet a longer time, in trail racing. It takes a lot longer than road running, even on the marathon. Just because of, you slow down on the trail. So being on your feet longer, you've got to learn to fuel yourself better, and take in calories and learn what works best for you, so far as that fueling strategy, whether it comes from liquid, are you getting your calories through your liquid, or, are you using gels or real food, whatever it may be, what works for you in your stomach. And how many calories can you tolerate within an hour?
Yeah, and so that's so key over the course of running an entire day is to get that calorie intake. Right. So basically, just get the miles in, get out there and do your thing as much as you can, as many days a week as you can, and practice eating.
Mm-hmm.
Would those be the takeaways?
Yes,
I like that. So you've had some obvious big moments in your career. Before we get into that, take us to the lowest moment. What was the most trying time when you're like, you know what? I've done my time with running. I'm not sure I'm into it anymore. Maybe this isn't for me. Is there any low points in there that really stick out?
Sure. My last year of college was probably my most frustrating. I had placed second in the mile the year previous. I should say I was in grad school my final year, and the stresses of grad school taxed me a bit more than I was used to. And going into the mile in indoor track week for me, stressful for the week of ACCs, and I had an awful round, and I stepped outside and I hit the wall and broke my hand, and so I had a fracture in my hand, and my coach made me keep during the ACC championships, at least so. My indoor track season was a little bit frustrating. It didn't go the way I wanted. So when outdoor came, I wanted to put everything I had into the steeplechase. It was an Olympic trials year, and so I got to my final steeplechase to qualify for nationals, and I hit my knee. I suffered a contusion and I couldn't stand up. I had 300 meters to go, and I was well under the Olympic trial qualifying time. And so it kind of buried me. It was really, really tough mentally. I had the Olympic trial qualifier 300 meters away from me, and I couldn't stand up to finish it. It was a real low point. Obviously, physically, I was hurt. So that was pretty much. We tried one more time. I tried to take a cortisone shot in my knee to let the knee work, but I couldn't land on it. I tried one more time, and my knee buckled under me. I couldn't take the weight. It was definitely a low point. Knowing I was so close. Well, I was there, and so I needed time. I needed time to heal physically and mentally. Time. I just stepped away for a little bit. We moved to Blacksburg, Virginia, for my wife to attend medical school. And one day I looked, in the mirror and noticed my cheeks were a bit rounder. I didn't see the gaunt Aaron that I'm used to, and said, it's time to get back to running. And so that's when the marathoning started. I found a good friend and training partner in Jay Johns there in Blacksburg, Virginia, and got my butt back in shape and started, working my way back and trying to qualify for the trials again.
So would you say it's fair to say that a takeaway from that is it's okay to take a little time, it's okay to step away and reevaluate when things aren't exactly going right?
Absolutely. You have to make sure that your mind's in it. If you have a goal, you have to make sure that, your mind and your body are behind you. There's some people that they want to do a race. And I guess it all goes back to your why. Is your why strong enough to get you through that race? Do you want to just do it because everybody else wants to do it? Or do you really want to do it for your own reasons, your own personal reasons? When you step to any line, and you get to that dark moment, is your why strong enough to continue? And that's the important thing. I always have a reason why. When I step to the line, I've had a few times where I've tried to toe the line and my why wasn't there. There wasn't a real significant reason to do that race, and I've had a hard time getting through, or even training, or getting up and going, because there's just I don't feel it. There's not a burning desire. There's not a passion. There's nothing there that that lights me up to say let's do this. I feel like crap. But I still need to get out the door. Those times it's like I feel like crap. I'm gonna stay in bed. So now it's I got to make sure that there's something there. And if I had a chance to tell that younger Aaron the same thing, it would be great. Just make sure there's a reason for doing what you're doing.
Just so. Recap that. I love that. If you're listening to this show, is your why strong enough? Be honest with yourself and take the necessary time to figure that out. That's a good one. Value bombs there. What about on the opposite end of the spectrum? Give me your what are you most proud of? What would you say that stands out as sort of the top of your career? Maybe it wasn't even a win. Maybe it was an event. But what really sticks out?
It actually goes back to the Canadian death race. I finished second, and it wasn't the finish. Well, in a way, it was. My kids were there, and they've really never experienced an ultra to that point. They just saw Dad, waking up at 3 a.m. and going out and getting back at 9 a.m. to have breakfast with them, and they're like, "How far did you go?" They didn't understand why, Daddy did what he was doing. So to have them there, they were crewing for me, and they got to witness the race and be a part of it and see what exactly Dad does, and cheer for me and help me and resupply me. I had my little girl give me clean socks, and she broke out wipes and was cleaning off my muddy shoes, and my son was handing me my pack and putting a new bladder in, and it was neat to have them a part of it. And so when I came into the finish and they ran in with me, it was the first time it was a we, and I think that moment was more than special. It's to allow them into my life and to let them see what it is that I do and why I do it. They understood, I think, at that moment, this is pretty awesome. And they both run now. My son is beside himself that he's going to UTMB. He's, my daughter, I think she understands, this is a pretty special race. I don't think they understand the magnitude of it, nor will they, or really do I until we'll get there. I mean, it's kind of it's a dream I talked about the Olympic trials earlier. This is another dream that, I hope to realize. And I don't know if I would really understand that dream until I step foot in French soil, and see, all these people lining streets and in villages. And I mean, it's just, it's kind of, it's the Boston Marathon of ultra running, if you will.
Oh yeah. So there's one thing to be an athlete, and then there's another thing to be a dad-thlete or a mom-thlete.
Yeah.
Give me some perspective into what that's like. You say you're getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and whatnot. There's various things, and I can kind of speak of this from experience myself. Is that you find a way and you find a kind of a deeper meaning in doing it. Describe to me how that feels to move from just being just an athlete for yourself and then having a family.
Sure. So I felt selfish for a long time because it was all about me. I always wanted to not make it selfish. Running, going out there every day, making it errand time. Like, how do I not make it so that it affects my family? And so I tried to step down from it. And make it less of a value in my life. And I realized that it was a part of me that I needed. I needed the competition. I needed the training. It's part of me. It's part of who I am. And so, has become in when it's not going to affect my family time. I value being with my kids and their time more so than anything. And so I want to make sure that, when I'm training, I have the time I need to get it in, but it's not going to affect my family time. So, and if it does, then I'm going to be at least present on the treadmill or working out in the basement, whatever it may be. I'll be home. So if they need me, I can step off the treadmill or I can step away from the weights or whatever. I just don't want it ever to affect being a dad. They understand on the weekends if I need to go out and run, and get in a long run and stuff like that. But like I said, I try to do it early so that I'm home. I can go to church. I can go to a ball game, whatever it may be. I don't want to miss my kids, their activities because, I got to go run. And then, in my spare time, whatever that may be, whether it's early morning, late night, or, when they're at school, whatever it is, that's, when I can get that stuff in. But,
Yep. I think that's a trend we found here on the Hammer Factor too, is you don't necessarily quit pursuing your passion. You just pursue it at odd hours.
That's exactly right.
What about through your career running? It could be back as early on as when you just started, or it could be when you first finished that 100-miler. Were there any breakthrough moments where you got done with an event or a training session, or you're like, I have just made it to another level. I just had a breakthrough. Can you take us there?
Yeah, sure. So, post-collegiately, reading I think it was Running Times at the time, and I saw this workout, and I was like, that's a whole nother level. If I can achieve that workout, then I'm on track to do what I want to do. It was a huge workout, more than what I thought I was capable of, especially at the paces it would have required of me. But when I nailed it, I was just like, okay, I got a shot. I can do this. So that was my first kind of step in the right direction of where I wanted to go. But I would say Chattanooga 100 was another one. Just a month, just over a month ago. Mm-hmm. I had been learning a lot about the ultras and 100-mile distance, and I think I finally put together a good 100. I dialed in nutrition. I dialed in pacing. I had my mental game was there. Every piece of it. Physically, I was well trained. it's just, it all came together and culminated in a really, really good race, where, I wanted to break 20 hours, which I did. I wanted to be competitive, which I was. I took second. So I mean, that was another one. Yeah, I mean, that was a huge step for me.
What if you had to give someone some advice, particularly on why it all came together for this Chattanooga race? What would it be?
Planning. I think sometimes we look, at, well, my training's going to be enough, and we don't make plan B, C, and D for when stuff goes really wrong. What am I going to do if my legs start cramping? What am I going to do if I start getting a blister? What am I going to do if my food's not working? My stomach's going sour. What are my fallbacks? I need to have planned. Okay, so here is plan A. If everything's going right, this is what's going to happen, and then plan B, if something happens, my food's not working, it's not sitting right with my stomach, what am I going to do? How am I going to cope? So I mean, just having those fallbacks, and creating not only backup plans but backup goals. Okay, so I'm not going to finish, top 3. What's my next goal? Okay, finishing sub 20. All right, so I'm not going to finish sub 20. What's my goal? All right, just finish. To have fallbacks in that regard as well, but planning in every regard for every contingency that you can. Whether it be through your gear, for any contingency of weather. When I did the Bighorn 100 this past summer, I was not prepared. We had 3 hailstorms and rain, and we found out the day before I was not going to be able to see my crew at 2 of the points where I had originally planned them to be, and I didn't have a fallback, and it definitely crushed my race. So I mean, planning for any contingency, in UTMB, I don't know if I'm truly going to see them at the points that I'm hoping to see them. So I'm going to plan ahead. I'm going to plan for any contingency of weather. Just having multiple kits, so far as like a hot weather kit, a cold weather kit, a rain kit, like footwear as well. For Bighorn, I didn't have the footwear I really should have had. And it's just poor planning on my part. So that, I put that all on me, and I learned. And that's, when I went to Chattanooga, I had any piece of footwear I could have wanted. I had all sorts of gear. I just, I froze out there at Bighorn because I just didn't have the right stuff, and I was soaking wet. So, lesson learned, but hard way to learn. So, I mean, if you can get ahead of it and plan for it, that's the key.
I like that. So to recap, if you're looking for that breakthrough moment, if you're looking to bust out, sometimes it's as simple as just planning.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. So let's talk about your career as an athlete. And I know that you have some sponsors for yourself outside of your store, which we'll talk about the store here in just a little bit. What are the struggles and rewards of having sponsors, and how do you get sponsors?
So to answer your question, to get sponsors, you have to apply, right? So usually the application season is towards the end of the year. You start looking in September and October at the companies you're interested in, and putting in applications. And usually if you look at their website, they have a way to do so. Basically you have to create a resume for what you've done, what your experience has been, and what your future racing season looks like, or competition season looks like. And they want to know about your social media handles, how many followers you have, all that sort of stuff, which when you talk about struggles, that's one of mine. I'm not a big social media guy. I don't like the hashtag. Don't ask me to, because I rarely post, and when I do, I don't put hashtags. It's I'll probably put a few hashtags, but I'm not like, that's the thing, is I'm not a huge social promotion person. I put my stuff up on Strava, and that's kind of the max that you'll see out of me. But um, so the the good things, is that you have a good relationship, and I understand that social media is a part of that and putting them out there. And that's where the store ties in for me. I feel that, like, having the store and supporting the brand through the store kind of supplements the fact that I'm not going to post every day and hashtag, everything longer than what my post actually is. It's I love supporting the brands that support me. They really do. I've had a long-standing relationship with Innovate, which has just come to an end. I'll be moving on this year to a different company, which is it's interesting. Things they change, and they always do. And that's you kind of have to roll with the punches. And like I said, I certainly appreciate everything Innovate ever did for me. But we'll be moving on this year and doing new things. So it's cool.
Can you offer us any glimpse into what that new thing is?
So I've been talking with Hoka. I'm working through them. They've got a kind of it's interesting. They call it their flyer program, and their flyer program it's a lot of gear, which is awesome. Everything helps. With the hope we've already discussed, potentially moving on to contractual kind of elite runner status. But we'll see how this year goes. I want to make sure that I perform as well. I take that upon myself that if I don't perform, I don't deserve sponsorship and such. So performance is a big part of it for me. So yeah, I'll be working with Hoka. I don't know. I've kind of dialed back my sponsorships because I've just kind of taken new directions. I had nutritional sponsors, but I've since kind of learned that I've kind of not gone the nutritional route that I traditionally have. So I've been using baby food. The real food has kind of been more beneficial to me. I don't feel right having nutritional sponsors where, I'm not using them as frequently or as much as I should be. So I've moved away from that. I've had some sponsors with Ultimate Directions as well, and I've kind of I've not gone there as well. I just kind of I've been using a lot of different products, so I didn't want to be tied down in that regard. That's kind of why I've stuck with Hoka, because I like their footwear. It's been working for me. I kind of transitioned into them about midway through last year. And I've really enjoyed running, in their shoes. I just didn't want to get tied down, with a sponsor and then not be able to use something that might be more beneficial to myself, especially with a big year like this. I've got the Mount Mitchell Challenge coming up, and then Georgia Death Race, followed by the Cruel Jewel 100 miler, and then UTMB. I want to make sure that what gear I use is right for me and right for my needs, and not just, because I'm trying to use my sponsor's gear. I wanted to make sure I had stuff I believed in and wanted to use as well.
One of the most interesting things we cover here on the Hammer Factor that I find so much variation in different athletes and different sports and whatnot is diet. And you touched on it just a little bit, the things you're eating while you're running versus what you used to do. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your diet. Do you have any particular trends or oddities or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, just over a year ago, I learned that I have a wheat allergy. not necessarily intolerance. Mine manifests itself over time. I get strictures in my throat and my esophagus due to an allergy. So I have eliminated wheat from my diet. It's taken me some time to find food that I can use, but it's really helped in how I feel and how I'm running, so I've eliminated wheat. I've always traditionally not done too much dairy. I may use some butter, but I really don't use much dairy product in my life. I've really restricted the amount of sugar that I intake. I'm trying to cut my weight back a little bit, which, obviously cutting sugar and unnecessary carbs really helps. So I'd like to get down near 150. I kind of range right now between 156 to 160, just depending on how much I'm running. Like I said, by UTMB, I want to kind of be down close, not necessarily at 150, but close to 150. So it's about a pound a month. So I think that's, a healthy way to come down. I don't drink much. I'm not a big, alcohol drinker. Mostly my son looked at me one day and said, I really idolize athletes that don't drink alcohol. So, what does that tell you? He always has looked up to me, and I kind of took it upon myself to nix drinking. Every now and again I'll have a drink, but for the most part I've eliminated alcohol as well. But as I said, he means the world to me, so that's a little sacrifice for my big man. So
very cool. And then, like during a race, what's your go-to calorie source when you're out there for 20 hours?
Yeah, as I said, the baby food. I think it's called Happy Baby. It's organic baby food. It's got about 100 calories a packet, which is nice because they're resealable, so you don't have to eat the whole thing if you don't want to. But I usually eat them down pretty easy. I use Goo Roctane for liquid fuel. It's got calories in it as well. So it's electrolyte and calories. It's about 200 calories per bottle. Usually try to get down a bottle per hour, and then probably one, maybe two baby foods. When I'm in the 100, getting late in the miles, probably about every 25 to 35 minutes, I'm eating a baby food, and I'll get a bottle down every hour still. So I'm definitely eating a little more frequently towards the end. And then the aid stations usually have a lot of foods and such. I like potatoes and salt. If they have avocados, I love avocados. I do chicken and rice soup and bacon. I had a lot of that for my crew.
I love bacon too. I'm
man.
15 hours in, there's something about bacon. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, salt and fat. It's great. So the Oscar Mayer has the pre-cooked stuff, so we don't have to do too much. It just comes in a nice little bag. As gross as that may sound to people, but I'll tell you, when you get late in the race, man, everything is good. I'll throw it right in the soup. So I do like a lot of more of the real foods. Again, I don't eat a lot of sugars and sweet stuff. I may have like a kid's Cliff Bar. Those just to kind of change the palate a little bit, get a little bit more solid. So I may do one of those every hour or two. Just like I said, to kind of change up the palate a little bit. I do like a lot of the Cliff stuff, but it's mostly their kids stuff. I like the fruit roll-up ones that they have, the little fruit chews. The kids ones, those are amazing. Strawberries, the bomb.
Oh, I love that. The dadthlete. So shifting gears just a little bit here. You have a running store, and you put on some local running events. The MR Running Pains
Mm-hmm.
series of events. Tell me about the industry. What's it like having a footwear shop and putting on those events? Give me the inside look at that industry.
It's been a roller coaster. Obviously, we started in 2007, which quickly followed with our recession. So it was a tough time to open. It was we first opened. It was pre-minimalistic movement. So footwear was kind of traditional 12 foot or excuse me 12 millimeter ramp shoes. Heavy cushion. Pretty heavyweight as well. And then we started transitioning into the minimalistic movement with the Born to Run book, which was an interesting time. Vibram was the five fingers was the hot thing, and we chose not to bring that in. We were worried about it creating injuries with runners, just because people were transitioning too quickly and maybe not knowing how to run properly in them because, contrary to what they claimed, it didn't always change your form. And I think that's why they got sued. So we chose not to go that direction. We did do some minimalistic footwear, but we wanted to make sure we were selling responsibly to our clients and talking about making sure that if you were going this direction, you were seeking help to learn how to adapt to this footwear and using it properly. And but then came the opposite pendulum and the swing to maximalist and Hoka. So Hoka came on and hit it hot and heavy, and like everybody wanted a Hoka. We did do Hoka, and we still have Hoka. Then it kind of the pendulum swung a bit back to the middle. Hoka was still there, minimalism was still there, but everybody kind of came back, and training shoes in general kind of got a bit lighter. So it was an interesting trend to watch. And then we were hit by the internet boom, where everybody, and I mean everybody, could sell a running shoe. CVS, I think, had running shoes. It was just everybody in the market seemed to be carrying running shoes, and it was a tough time, especially in Asheville. We had multiple run shops open, New Dick's, the outlets. It's just like it was everywhere. The market became flooded, so it was a tough time for us, and that was just a few years ago. We continue to focus on customer service and making sure we find the right fit for our customers and making sure that we were helping them through any problems that they may be having. So our focus continued to be on our service and making sure we were providing the best service we could. And I think that distinguished us from a lot of different people out there. So people may have tried other places and said, hey, I think Footer X was, doing it right and doing the right thing for the community. So we saw a lot of return customers last year. Things kind of took an upswing. We had a good year. We could continue to hope to do so. And just, obviously we're just thankful and blessed for being able to serve the community, being part of the community. The events that I put on kind of flow into that. I always want to make sure that I'm giving back and doing things for the community, and that's what my events are about. I don't hope to make a dime, honestly, from any of the events. Anybody that just did the Solly Frosty Foot, from the shirts, I spent $10,000 on shirts alone. I'm really just trying to make sure that the runners have an experience. From, like I said, from the shirts to the race, to the course, to the post-race meal. We did, my friend David Workman came and did oven-baked pizzas. I paid for every runner to have an oven-baked pizza. So I'm just trying to do the little things and make sure people enjoy and have a good time, and kind of create community through these events. We have DuPont next weekend, DuPont Yeti or Not. And, same thing. We're doing finish line soup, and we created Boko hats for the race and aluminum bottles for the finishers awards. I just, like I said, I'm just trying to make things useful and fun, and let the runners really enjoy themselves as it should be. I don't want a big commercial event. I'm not trying to blast music with the DJ and I'm not trying to put sponsors in everybody's faces and all that stuff. Really, it's about the trails, and giving back. I mean, I gave to Sorba through Solly, and I gave to the rescue squad out there, and DuPont will go back to the forest itself. It's all about, giving back to the community, to the runners, to those that support the community. So that's what the events are about, and I hope people see that. And that's the same thing with the store. We're really just there to serve. I really hope people walk in and feel welcome, feel like they got customer service. Really, they were cared for, and that we care about them and for them. So it's just I want continuity through the store, through the events. I want that same message. That it's that we love everybody. We love just being a part of this.
Well, I can speak firsthand. I have competed in some MR Running Pains events, and my wife is getting ready to do the one in DuPont coming up here in a week. I'm going to be out of town, so she'll be on her own with that one. But we have always had a great time. Definitely, we had the oven baked pizzas at Rooster's Revenge.
Nice.
If someone wants to participate, they're in Asheville or one of your events. Check out do you have a URL where people can go access that?
Yep. mrrunningpains.com. Yep.
Okay.
That's where all the events are at. The DuPont sold out right now. Fontaindengo out at Fontana Village will be March 2nd. And then, my nonprofit, the Run 828 Foundation, we have the trail running club, the North Carolina Mountain Trail Runners. We put on the Hellbender 100, which is April 12th. If you want to come out and just experience what it's like in 100-miler, not necessarily running it, but volunteering for it, that's another way to kind of learn about ultras. We always need volunteers in any of the events. And it's a good way to see what it's like and what these runners are going through and experience the event itself without actually running it. You'll learn a lot just by being at an aid station or being a marshal at a crossing. You'll see these runners, and it's not only is it motivating, but you'll get to see a lot and learn a lot. So and obviously we certainly appreciate all the volunteers that help out. These races could not happen without them. So
there is no doubt. So big race of the year, big goal coming up for Aaron Saft this year, UTMB. I know you're not super big on social media, but is there a place we can follow your adventure? If you're listening to this show, is there a place that we can, when we lead up to that event later this year?
I'm on Facebook, so Aaron Saft, Facebook. I post on there. I'm sure I'll be posting about the various races I do. Like I said, I'm on Strava, Aaron Saft. You can follow me on Strava, see my training. Ask questions. You can always email me. I've been coaching. I've got like 20 something athletes right now. I love that aspect of it. So, but if anybody ever has questions, feel free to email me, runningpains@gmail.com. I love hearing from people and love answering questions. You can message me on Facebook. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, Aaron, thanks for sharing your story here on the Hammer Factor. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we can conclude this interview?
Just appreciate the time, John, and all you're doing for our community. Look forward to seeing what crazy adventures we have in store for us in the future.
Yeah,
and appreciate it, buddy. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we'll see you on the trail soon.
Yes, sir.